It's Elliot in the morning.
All of the once-in-a-lifetime events.
iHeartRadio Music Festival, yeah!
All of the best free curated playlists.
The best bands.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
The stuff they don't want you to know.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome.
All of your favorite superstars.
This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And sometimes if you're over there, sometimes you can see how, you have to hit the right button sometimes to make this whole enterprise work. But we're here locked in for another one, as we have some chiming in with us already, like Robbie Flores saying, wishing a hello to everyone. Thanks for chiming in there as well. And a whole lot more going on that we're going to be talking about today, including some little bit more detail coming out, or at the very least, the attorney in the case, or in behalf of the accused in the rideshare shooter situation that has caused a lot of controversy here in the Borderland, sharing some of the information and some of the idea of the defense on behalf of, again, the one that was supposedly concerned they were being kidnapped to Juarez after seeing a road sign. So there's a lot to go into there, but also Texas finally fast-tracking that property tax relief bill after if it could have gone this fast beforehand. It's a question of why didn't it overall, but finally moving through it. And of course, now a constitutional election in November is going to be a part of this, as we were mentioning. But even out of this, also some rumblings of the next gubernatorial race, or at the very least, why I still contend that you should not count out the governor in any way, shape, or form, given, well, just some powerful performance and the fundraising department being seen so far. Like him or not, it's kind of hard to deny. So, thought about that. And then our interview today, extended conversation we're able to have with Chef Rulis of Rulis International Kitchen, which, of course, show sponsor, but also a lot of insight into the restaurant industry, business, the way things work here in town, and the kind of changing trends, the recognition that has happened and might or may not be coming in the future. If you've been wondering about Michelin stars, we've got an answer on that, as well as also just the willingness and nigh desperation, I would argue, that has been seen on the part of people just wanting to get out and do things, and how that has been reflected. So, a lot going on today, a lot that we're going to keep talking about, and definitely a lot of issues. So if you want to chime in or drop those likes and reacts like Jim McCravey, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, and Flaco Jimenez are over on the social media, you are more than welcome to it. And in fact, encouraged to do so if you can do so safely. Again, no holding the phone between your knees or the wheel or vice versa while you're on the road. Don't worry. These episodes, besides, I mean, I get it. It's live and you can interact with it live, and that's certainly a draw, but you can always go back and see them and then add your 2 cents afterwards, as some of y'all do. Don't think I don't see it there either. So the conversations even continue. After hours isn't the right phrase, but it's the best one I'm coming up with here. So we also have Ambrabando with the Rock On. Appreciate that. And Sean Gardner, good afternoon to you as well. So some of the details coming out from specifically our news partners at KFOX 14 in their article as of late last night, I guess, technically. KFOX 14 exclusive attorney for woman accused of shooting, killing El Paso Uber driver speaks out, shares defense. Specifically hearing from, again, the attorney for Phoebe Copas. That's a woman accused of shooting and killing an El Paso Uber driver in June. And again, according to the police report on that one, it was that Copas saw that they were passing a sign leading to Juarez, Mexico, basically headed south on US 54 is what the information was, and saw that and then believed that she was being kidnapped and taken across the border by her Uber driver, Daniel Piedra Garcia. And so her attorney, Matthew James Kozik, said there's more than that, which led to Copas to fire her weapon, saying, quote, to, again, our news partners at KFOX 14, quote, Ms. Copas was seen getting helped out of the vehicle because the doors were still locked, saying that Copas apparently asked Pedro Garcia to pull over when she feared she was getting taken to her destination, but he did not comply, saying that, quote, she said, quote, let me out, stop means stop, and let me out of the vehicle, end quote, means let me out of the vehicle, said Kozik. So, and saying that there were child locks in the vehicle, and says that's something they will be exploring further with Uber, that part of the attorney, saying, quote, she attempted to get out of the moving vehicle and the doors were locked. She attempted to get out of the vehicle through the windows were locked. It appears that there is nothing that Uber does, nothing more than look at the background of the driver. Uber does not check, but the safety of the vehicle, there's nothing to check to ensure that child locks are not operational. There's nothing to ensure or require that the drivers do not lock their windows, nothing. And that Copas claims her driver was taken to La Feria in Juarez, which was underway at the time of the shooting, and that's something that Kozik says his client wouldn't make up. So there's a lot more details going into that. Again, the full report available from our news partners over at KFOX 14. But I'm gonna say that this is gonna make this a probably messy case going forward. That's part of my expectation. And particularly in one of those, that she did not call 911, what Kozik replied, because that was the reports being sent, the police report that states, quote, the defendant never called for police or emergency services to report her being in immediate danger prior to shooting the complaining witness. The defendant took a photo of the complaining witness after he was shot and sent it to her boyfriend via text message prior to calling 911. And so in question to that one, Kozik, again, the attorney for Padas, replied, it's been reported that attempts to call law enforcement were made. We're still waiting on the discovery from the state, discovery being the cell phone, further investigative actions from law enforcement. Unfortunately, we just haven't received that yet at this time. So I'm going to call this a messy case probably going forward. It's a very interesting situation going for. I don't know if this would totally qualify as an affirmative defense, saying that, well, she did other reasonable actions along the line before then doing it. So basically arguing that, sure, she did it, but there were all these mitigating factors, state of mind type of things. So it's an aggressive defense, I would argue, without having, again, argued exactly this kind of stuff in front of a court myself. So I'm just going to call it messy from this particular standpoint, but we'll see how this continues to go through. Of course, there was the recent arraignment, and I do believe still held on a $1 million plus bond. Double check that one, not part of this particular story, but yeah, just messy there. But a couple other notes I want to get to before we get into our interview today, that finally, according to the Texas Tribune here, property tax cut hits the fast track as Senate advances long-awaited agreement. So we mentioned yesterday that Governor Greg Abbott has said, yes, he is willing to sign what is sent down because it meets his requirements, if not technically both parts of the charge that he gave to the Texas legislature about property tax relief, but also trying to, a phrase that I use that anyone who was in secondary higher education with me recognize, charting a course towards that of removing property taxes, well, the school district rather, and probably putting into sales tax is the part that's unsaid from there. So the package is now expected to land on Governor Greg Abbott's desk by the end of the week, and then there would be that constitutional amendment election for it to fully take effect at the end of this year, November specifically. So we also have Flaco Jimenez with, okay, it's almost one of the Bitmojis that I can't put up on screen, but don't worry, I see it and I appreciate it, as well as Mondo Mancanda over on the Twitch stream with the howdy there. Just one final note that we'll probably delve into a little bit further, that if anyone was wondering if Governor Greg Abbott, particularly in his frustration and some of the punitive actions, particularly with the vetoing of 70 plus bills, if I'm not mistaken, is going to see any impacts from it in the electoral, because, of course, he's going to be facing re-election himself before too long, as the governor's does come up. And so an interesting note from the Texas Tribune also on this, Governor Greg Abbott raised $15 million in 12-day window right after the regular legislative session. So he's now got $23 million in his campaign fund. As we also have Marky Mandingo, rather. Good afternoon to you as well over on the feed. So anyone willing to count out Governor Greg Abbott for any reason, not that it's totally happening, but with some of the rumblings coming already for the gubernatorial race, some previous runners, some potential, it feels like explorations going on, prodding of the situation, if you would. is starting to begin. So anyone willing to say that, oh no, Greg Abbott has had it, has no idea what they're talking about. Anyway, got to take that first break of this hour right now. Coming out of this break, we're going to be talking more with specifically one of the show sponsors, but a knowledgeable person in his own right, Chef Rulis of Rulis International Kitchen, about some interesting conversations with him in the past about navigating the situations, particularly in the midst or the immediate aftermath of the pandemic restrictions, etc. So looking into how things are working now. Almost again, my argument, desperation of people to get out and about and do things, and the recognition that has been happening of the Borderland, and particularly the food culture, not even just of the native cuisine, so to speak, but of the way it's being presented and in restaurants. So all that and a whole lot more coming up after this break. You are again tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone calls a little bit later, as we normally do. But in the meantime, of course, comments coming in, and stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
That backup on I-10 eastbound is looking a little bit better, but still 15-minute delays. I-10 eastbound after a crash approaching the Hunter Viscount exit. A couple of right lanes blocked and traffic backed up to Geronimo. An injury accident east Overland Avenue at South Campbell, and a crash with injuries in the Upper Valley Northwestern at Helen of Troy. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out.
My drinking had become a problem. Too many nights waking up at 3 a.m., sweating, head pounding, self-loathing, and anxiety hitting me hard. Thinking, how did I do this again? What's wrong with me? Why can't I stop?
If you're finally ready to stop drinking completely or just want to drink less, naltrexone could help you. Naltrexone is an FDA-approved medication that reduces cravings and pleasure from drinking, making it easier to drink less or quit alcohol altogether. And you can see improvement almost immediately. Whether your challenges with alcohol are mild, moderate, or severe, or health makes it simple to get started with treatment. Just text PROBLEM to 323232 to get a secure link to our private online assessment. One of our licensed medical professionals will evaluate your assessment, and if medication is right for you, prescribe it directly online. We'll deliver your prescription right to your front door. No doctor's office visits required. You really can stop drinking or just drink less. Text PROBLEM to 323232 to get started today. Text the word PROBLEM to 323232. Text PROBLEM to 323232.
In today's Marketers Report, Kate Cronin, Chief Brand Officer of Moderna, weighs in on the speed of audio production.
In this day and age, and particularly at Moderna, where we have new information coming out on a regular basis, being able to feed that information to the audio format makes being nimble and pivoting easy, and that's what I really like about it.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to the audiences, influencers, insights, and data you need to grow. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages like Willie Jenkins is there. Hello to you as well on the Facebook page. Good example there. Those coming up throughout, of course, the entirety of our show today, and just about every show. And other commentary coming in, like particularly on the whole gubernatorial implications. Buddy Bias saying, I don't like Abbott. He doesn't stand for anything. That has been some of the criticism of him, as we also have Ida Baeza Gardner with the high and the wave there as well. But again, even if you don't like the dude, I would hesitate to underestimate him, because particularly from the perspective of not liking him, you'd have to admit he's a formidable opponent, and one that he's on track to have a sizable war chest for this next electoral campaign. So that's some of the stuff we're talking about here today. But of course, local issues, as much as we're going to need to have, of course, a whole lot more campaigning here in the Borderland, there's a whole lot going on when it comes to restaurants, business, spaces like that. I don't know about y'all, but I've definitely noticed, this is anecdotal, but still, most places that have their doors open seem to be packed these days. If they're at all able to take a customer base, have people come in. There's a lot of people, the people just want to get out and do things, which is one of those that kind of, like, I have misgivings about the state of the economy being all good, all bad. It's weird. I'll just put it as weird for the most part. It's definitely different than it was. And so those changes, but also recognitions that have been coming, particularly in the restaurant sphere in our region, have been of great interest. So I got the chance to have a sit down with, again, one of our show sponsors, but also previous guest on the show in his own right, Chef Rulis of Rulis International Kitchen, to talk about kind of what's going on in the restaurant space here in town, the food culture, the representation of it, the recognition that has also been coming in many different ways, including different focuses from national programs, recognitions, nominations, finalists, those kind of things in our region. So I will talk to him about that on many different ways and kind of a pretty wide-ranging discussion for our interview today. So here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Chef Rulis from Rulis International Kitchen. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
It is my pleasure.
Happy to have you on to talk about things going on here because, of course, people have heard you. You're as one of our show sponsors, and we've had a discussion about the specials and potential meetups coming there. But also, there's been a lot going on and around that you have navigated yourself, both as a restaurateur and business owner here in town, of the different conditions, issues, challenges that have continued to arise, and even the abundance of opportunity that arguably exists now, but we'll talk about that here in just a second. But just as in case people want to know, there's a couple of things that y'all got going on that people may have seen, have been going to you like I have for years now, including some a taco takeover.
That's correct. We have a sister concept called Chingon Chow, and that is something that I operated about 6 years ago out of a food trailer out on the east side, and we got pretty good reviews from our Asian-inspired tacos, and now we're doing basically taco takeovers every Friday and Saturday of the month from 9 p.m. to midnight. And so basically, they're taking over the menu, and we have about 6-7 tacos that are all very, very flavorful, and they have a lot of history. Goes into my food. I think food that's cooked with love and soul just tends to taste better, and so that's what we're doing on late night weekends.
So yeah, it's also extended hours than what you would usually do, because I mean, y'all do dinner service certainly, but at midnight is a little bit longer than y'all would usually do it.
Yes, no, that's definitely a new thing that we're trying. Basically, we have this beautiful patio that unfortunately is too hot in the summer for people to eat during regular
the day
hours.
Yeah.
So we want to enjoy that patio, and so we're doing it at night. With really good drinks as well. We have excellent cocktails and some tacos. So
excellent. And so of course you had one of your first times. The first taco takeover day was actually this previous Friday then. And so how would you say the response was?
We got pretty good reviews. Again, the flavors that people are experiencing are something something's new, something's familiar,
sure,
just like in a different way. But we made the tortillas by hand, and we take care to do those little details that take a taco over the top. So
absolutely. And it's interesting the way that y'all structuring this, because, and one of the reasons I ask, how is the response beyond even just the flavors people coming out for, is because I think a lot of people have experienced this, but it seems that people, at least at this point, even with whatever the hell is going on with the economy and the considerations of, and money and income, is that people seem frankly desperate to get out and do things. That kind of the cooped up nature of previous recent years is so kind of on people being like, man, I gotta get out and do stuff while I have the opportunity to. Not that anything's like impending at this point, but just we weren't previously in recent years, things were not as open and available, so we're gonna get out and do everything now. Anywhere that seems to have its doors open and available seems to be packed these days. And so when it comes specifically then to the restaurant industry here in town, because obviously you operate, again, Rulis International Kitchen, but you also have a lot of contact with others in town, work with other chefs and restaurants, and I'm sure go other places and are always kind of exploring the subject here. Has that been your experience? Is that what you've been seeing, or what's your take on it?
Well, I definitely have seen like a lot of people start to go out. We've seen people that we hadn't seen like in over a year. Some people will act, some are like 2 years. Some people really barely started going out this year. So, we've been seeing our normal, we've been seeing our business kind of go back to the new normal,
Right.
and so we've adjusted and we keep doing things to keep things fresh and make sure that people still come to our place and enjoy an experience, not just a good meal.
Sure.
And we're super casual. Some people might even think that we're kind of like a local version of like a Chili's or something like that, because our menu is so varied. But our food obviously is very localized. The
Sure.
ideas are very localized. The stories behind the menu items are obviously a lot of my stories and stories of my family and stuff like that. So um but it's casual in that way, and we definitely um you know focus on the casual ambiance
Right.
because of my previous background.
You
So
focus on it. You have a certain way of and what presentation of, but it's not a fussy presentation. It's a come
yeah
as you are kind of
yeah
situation.
yeah I never got into business to be trendy. But after 15 years, I mean, it's obviously that we did set some trends. There's a lot more food. It's funny because whenever new restaurants would open up, people would always ask me, like our guests, "Oh, are you scared that this new restaurant opened?" And I always told them no. I was like, "That's like what I want." And I said,
Sure.
"And I would love it if more people cook this, the style of food that I cooked, that took things to another level. Even if, it doesn't have to be like fine dining or anything. It just has to
Sure.
be notched up, to something that's different. And the more that becomes the norm, well, then the more business that we're going to get, as a group. And so I welcome, people that want to get into the restaurant business. I just tell them that they have to love it before they get into it, because otherwise,
Yeah, it'll
they'll
chew,
hate
chew you up and spit you out. No pun
it.
intended.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
part of that, of course, kind of talking about then, restaurant and food culture here in
Mhm.
town is that one thing, yeah, particularly talking about local stories, that you do have a special chef's dinner coming up specifically about 600 years of flavor on the border that we'll talk about here in a minute. But
Yeah.
when it comes to food culture in general, there has been more recognition to an extent, it feels like, happening of El Paso and of, again, the food culture and the kind of way you're talking about it, of the focus on not just the this is great food, but this is the story behind it. This is the local, the regional, the history aspect behind it here. And a couple of ways it's been recognized, both in terms of popular media. Of course, y'all had diners, drive-ins, and dives there, not too long ago. There was
Mhm.
then that Padma Lakshmi, name of the program was Taste the Nation with Padma Lakshmi, that the first episode of that series on Hulu featured few El Paso restaurants, among other things. Some of which actually don't exist anymore now that I think about it. But that then did lead to, a little bit later on, some other notable recognitions in more recent years anyway, including James Beard Award, not winners in our area, but nominations and finalists or semifinalists, right?
Yes. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
when it comes to that level of, okay, for those that aren't familiar with it, James Beard Award, it may feel like one of those things that gets thrown around, but what's the, like, for those in the business, what is the significance of that?
Well, the James Beard Award is basically like the Oscars of the culinary world.
Okay.
So it's a prestigious award, and it brings attention definitely to your restaurant if you're the one that got it. But it also, I think, brings uh, uh just more attention to the region, and you know, I grew up here, so I know how good our food is here.
Sure.
We just have the sazon. There's just something in the in the water, if you will,
That too.
that creates really amazing chefs, and we have some incognito chefs, that are you know very low key, but amazing stuff. Paul Allen's personal chef, was from El Paso.
Yeah, and I've seen another mention of some other things going on in town being mentioned by the Levy family recently posting about that. But so specifically, and then on the James Beard Award nominations here, to go back to that for a second, the couple of them here, there were two that were nominated. It was the El Charlatan and then also Elemi and the head chefs of either of those. And those have been focused on, again, some of those other programs are talking about it in its own way. So, I mean, just it's kind of an honor to be nominated kind of situation, it sounds like,
for
right?
Sure. Yeah.
So when it comes to that recognition, I mean, there's a couple of things I'm thinking of here of other people paying attention to this region outside of it, but also there's an aspect of that I'm not totally in favor of sometimes it's nothing good is recognized locally until someone else outside of the area ends up putting a label or recognition on it. Sometimes they're always like, oh, someone else says it's good. No, well, now it has to be. That kind of situation feels like it's in the place sometimes. But of course, people have been just wanting to go out and do a lot of other things these days. Anyway,
yeah, no, and I would say my personal feeling on it is that I do think that people, in El Paso, they give some credit, not to the extent that they should.
Sure.
But but in all fairness, locals already loved a lot of these restaurants.
Sure.
So they're out there and giving it, their passion and they're passionate people and it's and it's good for it's good for the industry in general. If if people, like, if the industry is going through, the industry is going through changes, obviously, because the pandemic cost a bunch of things to change. But the important thing is, I think, to elevate, and so I think that there is like the new school and the old school, and the old school, I don't like it, because that's like all the haters. The new school
Sure.
is, let's collaborate, let's help each other out, let's build something together. And I've always told my staff, because in the area where we're at, where Rulis is at, we're our own standalone business.
Sure.
And across the parking lot is 2, 3 locally owned businesses as well. And I always told my employees, if they ever said anything like, because they do use our parking lot, and so if they ever said anything bad about the people going to the other places, I'd say, hey, those guys are not our competition. I was like, I'm happy if they get more customers. I was like, we are in competition with the chains. Those are the people that we're trying, to win over, because the chains, through their consistency, have, created a loyalty, amongst customers that, obviously, because they're franchises or chains, they
Sure.
They span, a long way. But we're trying to get that customer into the doors of a local restaurant, so that they can experience something that's a little more familiar, a little more at home, because in hospitality, you're entertaining people and you're trying to make them feel like they're at home, right? So that's kind of the idea behind it. And so collaborating this, the way that you collaborate and pump other people up, their competition, quote unquote competition, you got to pump them up, because, like I said, eventually, when it's like craft beer, when I opened 15 years ago, I was one of a handful of places that carried craft beer, and
the Texas focus specifically that you all have on that, right?
We had when we had Unrulies, when we had the pizzeria, the focus was Texas, New Mexico, and so
Sure.
And that was like 10 years ago. So again, now every restaurant carries, an IPA or carries something like that. So it became the norm, and now more people drink that. Now we don't get, 15 years ago we'd be like, "Where's the Bud Light?" And so I just want a Bud Light, and it's like, well, we don't carry Bud Light, but we carry, We even carry Shiner Light,
This
which is a
arguably
shiner.
better thing kind of thing.
Exactly. And we don't have that anymore. Like that hasn't happened in years. Why?
Hmm.
Because people got familiar with craft beer and now they come in and people that you would not imagine are asking for, oh, I want an amber, or no, I want an IPA, and no, I want something dark. And so people have learned, about the different beer styles and things like that. And now it's the norm. And so we don't have to educate the customer as much when it comes to to beer. And it's also happened with wine. Wine in El Paso. The El Paso wine market the El Paso wine market is like, if it's a totem pole, we're at the bottom of the totem pole. Because there's not much appreciation, for wine, and for the first 5-6 years, we were selling a ton of just sweet wine.
Yeah, sure.
But that all changed, probably about 7 years ago, when we saw this shift of people going to Chardonnays and Pinot Grigios, and they started drinking different things. And so we see how people have started to learn more about wine and how to eat with it and enjoy it more than before. We're still, miles away from Houston, literally and figuratively,
Sure.
Because when I lived in Houston, which was like 20 years ago, it seems that like every little place had like this amazing wine list.
Yeah.
It didn't matter, where you'd go. If it was a casual place, a fancy place, they all had the wine. And that's kind of what's happening here on a a slower scale. Like it's not being adopted as fast as craft beer was, but people are learning and people are, palates are changing. And so when it comes to the food, that's what we want. So we want more charlatan, which we're going to have a pop-up. We're talking to pop-ups.
Right.
So be on the lookout for that.
Absolutely. And so again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Chef Rulis from Rulis International Kitchen, of course, sponsors of the program. But if you want to find them out for themselves here, best way to find out about some of their ongoing stuff would be to go to their Facebook page, Rulis IK. That's RULISIK for Rulis International Kitchen. But of course, you can find them online at rulisik.com. And they're not too far down the street from our studios here, 4176 North Mesa Street. So that's the first part of an interview. We're going to come back and conclude the rest of this interview here. So taking that break right now, we got some of the comments that have been coming up that have been popping up on screen, including questions about food trucks or competition from it there. I'm going to hazard a guess that he's not that concerned about it, but finishing up that interview after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. Police in Las Cruces continue to investigate a crash that sparked an enormous fire on the I-25 I-10 interchange last night. The semi-truck carrying fuel overturned on that off-ramp at about 7 o'clock last night. The fire sent a huge plume of smoke and flames shooting into the air and snarled traffic for hours. Authorities have still not located the driver of the big rig, and the investigation continues. Police officials have identified the man who died in a crash in El Paso's Lower Valley. That crash happened Monday night. Officials identified the man who died as 30-year-old Jose Guadalupe Rodriguez. According to preliminary investigations, a citizen walking along a canal noticed an overturned pickup truck on Tuesday morning near Socorro. Officials said that Rodriguez was driving at a high rate of speed on Monday night when he lost control and the vehicle veered off the dirt road into the embankment. As this occurred, Rodriguez was ejected from the vehicle. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
That backup on I-10 eastbound is looking a little bit better, but still 15-minute delays. I-10 eastbound after a crash approaching the Hunter Viscount exit. A couple of right lanes blocked and traffic backed up to Geronimo. An injury accident east Overland Avenue at South Campbell. And a crash with injuries in the Upper Valley Northwestern at Helen of Troy. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Weather warning continues for heat. We have the heat advisory going all the way through Saturday and continued hot for tomorrow. High around 105 degrees, a 20% chance of thunderstorms. As we look ahead to your Friday, partly cloudy skies, high around 107, 30% chance of thunderstorms. Looks like storm chances will be going down for the weekend while temperatures stay hot. Partly cloudy Saturday, high around 107, 10% chance of a storm. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
That huge data breach from a few weeks ago has probably moved off your radar, but your information could still be on the dark web. LifeLock alerts you to suspicious activity, like someone using your info. If there's a problem, LifeLock's U.S.-based identity restoration specialists will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions, but LifeLock will help protect your identity long after this breach is forgotten. Save up to 25% your first year. Use promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com.
Protection for all, peace of mind for you. For over 40 years, Mazer Security Alarms has proudly served El Paso with superior service and superior protection. You can afford the best. For your free quote or to upgrade your existing system, call Mazer Security Alarms at 915-590-0033.
Boost your imagination with Audible. Listen to the biggest selection of audio entertainment, from celeb memoirs to motivation and more. Audiobooks, podcasts, and originals. There's more to imagine when we listen. Sign up for a free trial at audible.com. This report is sponsored by Audible.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. Getting into that second part of that interview with, again, Chef Rulis of Rulis International Kitchen. More on, basically, an argument that comes up here is about, okay, the conflict, competition between restaurants, but essentially how the recognition, and also one of the kind of unspoken questions, or ones people have been speculating around that I've heard about. Okay, so what about further awards or recognitions like Michelin stars? Is that possible? The answer there probably going to surprise you, but we get into that here in that second part of that interview. So here is the conclusion of that, and after this, we'll probably getting straight to the top of the hour from looking at the time, right, and straight into the phone calls, but we'll make that announcement as clear as we can. So here is the conclusion of the interview with, again, Chef Rulis. Enjoy. So kind of towards that collaboration aspect that you're talking about, you do have an upcoming collaboration dinner with Chef Mateo Herrera for the 600 Years of Flavor on the Border dinner.
Yes. Very excited to collaborate with Mateo again. Mateo used to be my sous chef prior to the pandemic, and because of the way things panned out, he left the restaurant. But we've always remained close, and I admire his work and his ethic, and his passion more than anything for food. And so he's been having pop-ups at the restaurant on Mondays, since we're closed on Mondays, and that's been helping him get some of that creative energy out. And I said, we got to do a dinner again, and he was like, let's do it. And so we're doing it on Monday, July 17th.
Okay.
And it's a 6-course dinner. Very, very excited about it. This one, we're very excited about this one in particular, because the past ones, we sort of limited ourselves to the time period, as far as the presentations and things like that.
Okay.
And this time around, we said, let just the inspiration carry the dish to wherever it's going to lead. And so the inspiration is still there, the history is still there,
right?
But also, as I talk about a lot about food evolution, it is part of that evolutionary process. And so we're very excited about it. It's going to be really, really fun. I think the flavors are going to be amazing. And of course, all those flavors that we're going to be talking about all relate to this region and
right.
The people, the cultures. We have so much history. We've talked about that before, but yeah, it's really exciting. And so that's coming up Monday, and then we have some other things that are in the works. Nothing detail wise yet, but I do have at least 2 more collaborations coming up with friends of mine who have amazing careers on their own, and it's fun to get together and just play with your food.
Clearly, I mean, just to mention here, people can see the full list there. The first course involves popcorn ice cream, zucchini wafer, bean paste, kind of sounding like from the indigenous roots of locally available kind of things, and then going all the way to locally grown mushroom shawarma, which definitely is a more modern thing and a more modern aspect of it. So there's a lot of interesting things you got going on there, including and then tiramisu tres leches, full list y'all got on your website. So that one's interesting. So with the recognition, with the collaboration, like the kind of argument you're making about, a rising tide raises all boats when it comes to this space of wanting to see, again, basically local versus chains, kind of the way you're putting it there. So that kind of naturally leads to, particularly with the recognitions, whether it be the actual award or nominations for awards or finalist status for it, or of course, the programs that have been coming through and focusing on different ways. One that I've been focused on for years has been a barbecue, and there's been more recognition of that here in town. So one of the questions that for a lot of people, if they're at all in the space or know about it, leads to, okay, well, what about some of the arguably ultimate recognitions then when it comes to food is that of the Michelin star? The star restaurant status is kind of in a lot of people's minds is that worth it or not? Because if they're going to go someplace, that's what at the tops people's list. And so that's one of the natural questions is this on a progression towards it? Of course, none of those awards we talked about have been awarded in our area yet. Again, nominations towards it, but that's kind of the question of, is that towards a path of not even just any individual organization, company, restaurant, etc., but of in general of the area becoming notable enough in order to kind of continue both getting those kind of rewards, recognition, or maybe eventually final ratings. Because again, the Michelin star is, I think you'd be hard pressed, at least in the average person's mind, to find a more kind of like gold standard of, is this a very good restaurant or not?
Right. Yeah, no, Michelin, a Michelin star, I think, is what a lot of a lot of the European chefs, a lot of the Asian chefs, they tend to be awarded more, on that side of the ocean. But the basic premise to a Michelin starred restaurant is really consistency. And so the Michelin star goes to the restaurant, not the chef.
Right.
And so it's because it's an overall experience. So the food has to be on point, but your servers have to be on point, your bartenders have to be on point, everybody has to be on point. And there is a level of discipline to achieve, that status that is almost military like. The traditional kitchen setup, it's called a kitchen brigade,
right?
So there is
the corps de cuisine, right?
So there's that, which I think that it's nowadays it's very hard to find, I think, a group of people that dedicated to do all of that for one award. I think that's very difficult to do, especially because the industry in general is going through a shift.
Right.
It's always been low wages, and we've tried, as a company, we've always tried to pay a decent wage. The pandemic really kind of put things in perspective for a lot of people. And what we found was that all of a sudden the restaurants were now matching what we were paying, and then they started to pay more. But what happened is that they overshoot. And so now there's some people out there that think they're worth a lot more than they actually are.
that their necessarily talent and training would be able to justify, because it always felt like, having spent very tangential experience in food service myself, it was always a totem pole in the way you put it here, but it's certainly a hierarchy, and that if you work your way up and get to some of those higher positions, sous chef, like you mentioned for one of them here, that both commands a level of respect within the kitchen itself here, but then also of essentially resources that comes along with it. That again, there's a hierarchy both of, again, power play as well as then compensation that comes along with it. Then also based on the level of institution that you're in and the way that it's done there. Going to be more than a short order cook versus your fine dining experiences, so to speak, kind of very broadly speaking. And so that has been the concept, but hadn't necessarily always been prevalent in El Paso. It does feel like, because there have been some chains that I've been involved with that have come through that were expecting there to be a certain kind of, and not even just that it's not been changing, but that it was different in El Paso, of there being a level of service industry expertise kind of existing within the workforce and the population that has kind of been lacking in a lot of ways in our area. It was basically the criticism that I was hearing.
Yes, I think that it has. I mean, the pandemic messed things up at so many levels.
Sure.
And I think that work ethic is one of those things that it's very hard for us to find people with good work ethic. And the ones, that you do find, with good, work ethic, they eventually realize that their worth is more outside of El Paso, because the restaurants, I think here in El Paso are, outside of chains, you have your mom and pops, and I think people have this misconception, that we're rich because we own a business, and it's like, no, it's hard, it's very, very hard. And you try, with me, it's about team building, and so with me, like my team, I pay them as much as I can. And with me, it's more about creating an environment where my team can flourish, and where they have the ability to, create, because ultimately I think that's what makes us in the kitchen, my team in the kitchen, such a good team, because everybody that's in there really loves food, and so, and it takes a while, to find those people that have that same level, of passion or love, for what they do. And when you find them, then you just, try your best to keep them in an environment that's comfortable for them. So,
and to keep developing it and keep it going there, because that care, concern, the passion you're talking about there is critical for someone truly developing a craft as it is. So in looking at that question and following up on the question of, okay, on the ratings, was it possible that this is on the path towards a Michelin star? I was actually surprised to find that there are no Michelin starred restaurants in Texas
right.
overall. So the short answer to that question I kind of posed is no, this probably isn't that way, because Michelin is not, it is an international rating system, like you said, a lot more focused on, say, Asia and Europe and things like that. But also it's only the places that, and if people wondering, like, Michelin, is that like the tire company? It is literally the tire company. It is the same people of different division, arguably, of that one. But I mean, the concept came around from the idea of, okay, we got these tires, we want people to go and use them, so let's give them places to drive to go to a restaurant kind of thing. And that has stayed on well past the earlier years of that being established, and now it is an international standard, but it's not international in the universal sense. It is international that is present in many different countries, but it's only in the places where the Michelin, again, company releases their travel guides, to which it does have none in Texas. So short answer is you're probably not in El Paso before too long. But when it comes to then what's happening with food culture and even our internal recognition of these things in El Paso, where do you see this going, or where do you hope it goes?
Well, I'll go back a little bit to to Michelin and I mean any and all awards really, because you do have to take it with a grain of salt,
Sure.
because the to me the important thing is that my customers enjoy their food, enjoy what I'm making for them. They are ultimately the judges, the people that go in week after week, are regulars and stuff like that. Those are the people that we're trying, to impress. And then we're obviously trying to impress, the local demographic, that didn't sound right. We're trying to
the local
bring over
population.
the local population, but as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to bring in people from the chains to eat at our place, right? So I think that Michelin is, it would be great to have, and and any of the awards would be amazing to have, and obviously would bring additional additional traffic to any restaurant. There's no denying anything like that. But is it the only thing that I'm gonna base my decision on? No, because we just had this weekend. I'm gonna be very candid about it. We had back to back 2-star reviews, and both of them were about the oxtail tostada. And on one of them, the lady said that Guy Fieri must have been crazy to call that a postcard from Flavortown or something to that effect.
Sure.
Right. And so, I mean, he liked it, but these two people, didn't like it, and so, am I bummed out about it? Well, no, I'm not bummed out about it. I mean, I know I'm not going to be able to please everybody, and I know that not all my reviews can be, 5-star reviews, and we do get the occasional one, where people say this, right? And so, that's what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. We're judged on a day-to-day basis, and I tell the staff, it's like we're only as good as our last service. So if we, if someone's not doing their job, it can go badly real fast. And so even though we're not aspiring to get a Michelin or any award like that, we're still working on a discipline and on
right.
Working on a consistency, for our clientele. I think Michelin a few years ago started getting into street food, and
they have
started
done a couple of ratings,
on street vendors and stuff like that. But people who travel can tell you the best meals that they probably had was probably on the sidewalk somewhere,
or some hole in the wall that has
Exactly.
never been listed in any travel
Right.
guidebook or anything like that only the people locally would know about. So it seems like kind of the way you want food culture in El Paso to go, is that regardless of the recognition, regardless of what anyone else is saying outside of the area, that local people both understand, appreciate, and get to know the places that are putting that kind of work in.
Yeah, just recognize the craft. Recognize that some of these things that we do take time, and time, you can't get that back. Like, it is truly invaluable, no matter how rich you are. You cannot get that time back. And so, my team, a bunch of teams in El Paso, they're sacrificing their time. The barbecue guys, they sacrifice a lot of time
overnights, even,
to cook this, the briskets and
and
barbecue
turkey,
stuff like that, and so it takes time. And so, when people start to complain about certain prices, it's like, well, one, we've had inflation, so prices are going up. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
But time is also involved in this thing, and so when you are going to take that time, to do those extra steps and to do, those extra things that you wouldn't do at home. Because right now, when you mention, do I go out to eat? I go out to eat all the time.
Sure.
And there's some things that I rather go out to have, than cook it at home. Not because I don't know how to cook it, just because it takes so much time. And if I want a bowl,
absolutely.
If I want a
News
bowl
on
of
the hour
ramen,
and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
get a bowl
News
of ramen
Radio
because
690 is
making ramen
KTSM
is,
AM El
takes
Paso,
all that,
an iHeart radio
process,
station.
Yeah, we're not talking about packaged noodles here. We're talking about the creation of the broth and the building up of it and the layering of flavors that, in the true enterprise, like, sure, you could do that at home, and I'm sure you'd be fine at it, better than I would be. But to do it and then have it be like, all right, I have my one bowl and that's it. It's a different scope and scale than it would be at a restaurant scale where they are then doing that service and constantly serving that around. So it makes sense. There's plenty of dishes. Like I've made a beef Wellington before, and I only do that for incredibly special occasions because having someone who is then purpose doing that and doing that in scale, so to speak, makes a lot more sense there. So there's a lot of interesting changes coming for the restaurant industry overall. But again, the focus is that you all are having, and again, some of the collaboration dinners, among other things. Again, the one that you got coming up Monday, the 600 Years of Flavor on the Border that you're doing along with Chef Mateo Herrera. That people can find out information by going again to the Facebook page Rulis IK, so facebook.com/Rulis IK, or again all the information on what you all have and what you all do, rulisik.com, and of course find you all at 4176 North Mesa. So again, guest right now has been Chef Ruli Gonzalez of Rulis International Kitchen. Thank you very much for coming by to talk to us about some of the things you all got going on, some of the trends you're seeing in the industry, and some of the things going on here in our region overall here today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, and we are taking that break right now, but as part of that break, we're also going to open up those phone lines as we normally do. Yeah, screwed up the timing a little bit, but now, of course, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The Northeast is dealing with catastrophic flooding while the Southwest is seeing an extremely dangerous heat wave. Meteorologists say a heat dome is expanding from much of Texas into parts of California. Meanwhile, heavy rains have left parts of the Northeast with collapsed bridges, washed out roads, and swift moving water. The cleanup goes on in Vermont after historic flooding pummeled the state. Montpelier resident Kimberly Pierce said her house is a mess.
We're up pretty high on the hill away from Montpelier, but all of a sudden my basement was flooded, and it was just because of the water coming through the ground.
President Biden is visiting Finland after wrapping up a key NATO summit in Lithuania. Biden will hold a bilateral meeting with the president of Finland in Helsinki on Thursday. Finland officially became the 31st member of NATO in April, marking a major shift in the security landscape in northeastern Europe. An Arizona man is suing Fox News and one of the network's former hosts for defamation. Mark Epps claims the cable news network and Tucker Carlson spread what he calls falsehoods about him being an undercover FBI agent who encouraged the crowds that attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Over a third of student borrowers spent money they thought would be forgiven. Lisa Taylor has more.
A new poll from Intelligent.com shows the borrowers were confident they'd receive relief under President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. More than half say they're unprepared for payments to restart as planned in October. The Supreme Court said the president didn't have the authority to cancel such a large amount of consumer debt without authorization from Congress.
An escaped Pennsylvania convict is still on the run after a nearly week-long manhunt. Officials say Michael Burham, who is said to have survivalist skills, busted out of a Pennsylvania jail through the roof overnight Thursday. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Twitter is reportedly blocking links to its new rival, Instagram Threads. According to users, links to threads.net are being blocked in Twitter searches. The move makes it more difficult to jump from one platform to the other and to locate user profiles on Threads. FEMA ranks counties across the country for wildfire risk, and San Diego County is at the top of the list. Lucinda Kay reports.
FEMA compared counties across the country, calculated natural hazards, and expected loss each year. San Diego County has some of the highest wildfire risk in the United States. CAL FIRE says it makes sense. The county's blessed with variety like vegetation, grasslands, the chaparral, that's the thick shrubland near the coastlines, even forests. And thanks to the topography, CAL FIRE says the winds blow extremely fast and the relative humidity drops like a hot potato. Then you've got added growth after the rainy winter, and now the heat wave. Safety first.
Screen time is now an issue with zoo animals in Canada. Bree Tennis has the story.
Officials at the Toronto Zoo have put out a plea to visitors to stop showing gorillas cell phone videos. They say some of the content being shown could be upsetting and affect their relationship and behavior within their gorilla family. Behavioral husbandry officials say most of the videos shown are benign, but they want to encourage the wild animals to stay wild. So screen time is gone. I'm Bree Tennis.
More than 1 in 3 Americans are going through a sleep divorce. That's when someone regularly or occasionally sleeps in another room than their partner in order to get some rest without distractions like snoring or alarms. The data came to light in a survey from the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, which found that sleep divorce was most prominent among millennials, 43% of whom said they sleep in different rooms. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Pay. That's pay. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's BOGO $1 deal. Wendy's BOGO $1 deal is back at participating Wendy's. Buy a Dave's Single, spicy chicken sandwich, 10-piece nugs, or medium frosty, and get another for $1. Double your deliciousness. Hurry, this BOGO deal won't last.
Protection for all, peace of mind for you. For over 40 years, Mazer Security Alarms has proudly served El Paso with superior service and protection. Locally owned and operated, Mazer Security Alarms created Super Switch technology to prevent false alarms and keep your business and family safe. You can afford the best. For your free quote or to upgrade your existing system, call Mazer Security Alarms at 915-590-0033. That's 915-590-0033. Mazer Security Alarms. The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
Welcome to the good stuff. I'm Jacob Schick, a third-generation combat Marine.
And I'm his co-host and wife, Ashley Schick. We believe everyone has a story to tell, not only about the peaks, but the valleys they've been through to get them to where they are today. We're joined by some amazing guests who share the lessons they've learned that shaped who they are and what they're doing to pay it forward and give back.
Listen to the good stuff on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcast.
Foo Fighters,
Fall Out Boy,
Kelly Clarkson,
Kane Brown,
Lil Wayne,
Lenny Kravitz,
Miguel,
Public Enemy,
Sheryl Crow,
Travis Scott,
Tim McGraw,
TLC,
30 Seconds to Mars.
Get your tickets now.
For 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
AXS.com.
If your business is feeling a summer hiring wave, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in there. Been putting up some of the comments throughout the extended-ish interview. Yeah, I screwed up the timing on that one, but we're still here and doing what we do best about talking about the local stuff. So a little bit different than usual, but again, we're here to talk about all the things going on in the Borderland, and yeah, people getting out and about and doing things. It's certainly economic driver, certainly a thing that affects, our business partners and people that y'all may know and care about. And I mean, restaurants have always been different in El Paso. Specifically, remember when there have been some, national organizations coming in and expecting there to be essentially a local staff level of training that they kind of been surprised about it. But anyway, that's part of the conversation. We'll get into those phone lines here, but of course, we do appreciate those who've been commenting and, among other things, dropping those likes and reacts like Angel Rueda, RJ Promotes, Ida Beza, Gardner, Marky Mandingo, James Holmes, Umber Banda, James Radcliffe, Sean Gardner, Jim McCravey, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Flaco Jimenez, and a lot of other commentary coming in, including some being hungry now after some of these discussions. Don't worry, we're doing the best we can with all of this, even if you think that other things are maybe or maybe not functioning the way they're supposed to be. Anyway, let's jump into those phone lines here now, because there's a lot of conversation and commentary on different aspects of what we've been talking about today, because of course news does continue on. So let's jump right in with it right now. We do have Rick calling in from the Sacramento Mountains right now. Rick, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for you and your show and the freedom that gives the speech to everybody.
No, sure. Think what's on your mind.
Negative and positive.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to mention about the restaurants. There's this restaurant that's come out. It was a soft opening in June 13th. It's Krishna Kitchen, and it's a relative of mine. I want to invite you, Chef Rulis, and you, Andrew, to go and see the restaurant. It's the only. We talk about history. This is now in the now making history. The only restaurant that's giving food free in Texas and in El Paso. They're going to be he opens every week. It's Richard Quintanar Jr., and it's Krishna Kitchen. That's the place called. And it's 10280 Montana Avenue, Little past McRae, Suite K. And that's going to be from 12 noon to 2 o'clock. And It's Indian food, vegetarian, 100%. And it's going to be the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th, these next 3 days. And I hope you, Andrew, can make it. He's a great young man. He's, like I say, history making in the history in the now. No restaurant in Texas, and that's his purpose. You can donate digitally. He does not accept physical monetary donations. It has to be accounted for, so it's digitally. And he has a scan number. You go there, eat. It's almost like a pay it forward scene. You give your little donation. He can continue feeding. He's fed the homeless for going on 5 years now. Right at the end of Trump's administration, he started, and he's been going on strong. Then this happened with all these. He was going down to the one downtown. He was doing all this. He's been doing it. He opened it now. Now everybody has a place to go. 12 to 2 o'clock, the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th. These next 3 days, I invite everybody. Be aware there is free food. You can, and it's beautiful. You, Andrew, and Chef Rulis, go and enjoy it. Enjoy it. This is a great young man, what he's doing. And I hope everybody in El Paso, and again, thank you for this information that you let everybody have with your show, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Well, sure thing. Well, thanks for the interesting other perspective on it. Yeah, someone doing it as a giveaway and as a free way to support the community is very interesting. So thanks for bringing that up here as well, and I appreciate the point in the call.
I thank you. Enjoy.
All right. And I think we have time for get to at least one more call before we get to that next segment here already. Again, the number to call, in case I got it very quickly at the end of last segment, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Marco over in Central online with us here right now. Marco, thanks for joining us.
How's it going, Andrew?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
So I kind of want to talk about consensus science.
Okay.
And what a bullcrap statement that is. Because science is never consensus. Science can never be a consensus because science is always changing. So that idea is it's a false premise to get you to do something. So let's talk about reality. How much atmosphere do you think the Earth has in metric tons? Just throw an idea out there. How much do you think in volume that is?
Millions, if not billions, of metric tons.
Ready? This will blow your mind. Okay, 5.5 quadrillion metric tons of atmosphere. Okay, which
Okay.
makes up 1/1,000,000th of the Earth's total mass.
Sure.
Okay, just to give you an idea. Okay, so what percentage is of the atmosphere? What are the two main drivers in our atmosphere? Nitrogen and oxygen.
Oh, sure.
Nitrogen's about 70%. Oxygen's about 20%. So you have about 1%, 2% left over for just argon and methane and carbon. Well, let's talk about carbon then. Do you know how much carbon is in the atmosphere? I think I've told you this before, actually.
Yeah, I think we've had the discussion about that as the overall percentage. I mean, carbon dioxide particularly, and all of those derivatives. Mhm.
So it's about 0.04%, okay, of the total sum of the atmosphere. So that means if I took that 0.04% and turned it into cubic metric miles, that would be about 100 miles worth of CO2. That's how much the left is crying that CO2 is a pollutant. Okay, so again, though, we're talking science here. I'm not saying there's a consensus. I'm just giving you facts. Okay, if you go to Google and you ask Google, what is the emissivity? Okay, so what's emissivity? When I say what is the emissivity of an object, that's the ability of an object to retain radiation energy. Okay. So if you look at the amount of emissivity in CO2, even though it's about 0.04% of our atmosphere, okay, what happens? It diminishes as it gets closer to the Earth. In other words, the emissivity of CO2 in our atmosphere actually acts as a cooling effect in the atmosphere, okay? This is why at times when you have volcanic eruptions and you have massive amounts of soot, of hydrocarbons flying into the atmosphere, the Earth doesn't turn into a sauna, right? It turns, in fact, quite frankly, it goes opposite. It cools down. Why? Because the amount of radiation that's allowed to come through isn't being retained in the Earth. So it's more free-flowing. What are the major drivers of emissivity, energy retention in the world? Water. That's the biggest driver. This is exactly why whenever a cloud covers the sun, you don't feel like, oh, wow, it's nice. And like you feel genuinely cooler. Why? Because the radiation isn't hitting your body. When we're talking about global climate change and the way Raul stated it the other day, that the main driver is fossil fuels, first off, there's no such thing as fossil fuels. That's a nonsensical argument created. I don't even know where it started. We should start talking about the abiotic theories of fuel because of, like, let's say coal. I know I'm jumping everywhere, but coal is an organic solid-based matter that's used to burn to drive trains and all sorts of stuff in the early industrial age, okay? It's a hydrocarbon.
Yeah.
Why does all this matter? Because when you burn a hydrocarbon and that hydrocarbon molecule hits the air, what's it turn into? It turns into water. Water. And so, again,
Well, it can.
look, I know that Raul and Eric are part of an extinction rebellion because they would like to go back to a new feudal system where you and me and every plebe in the United States and the world are just practicing a quasi form of agrarian society where we eat bugs and sewage and only the privileged get to do stuff. But tell me the science. Tell me the science that you're telling me about, oh, look at El Paso, its experience. You know what? I went back. I should have brought this stat with me. But I look back. There has been years that have been consecutive, like 2 months in a row, like late June, early August, of 120 degrees, Andrew. So I'll make it short and sweet here so other people can get in. I want This is why I would never have a debate with him, because Raul will come back and say this to me, but the consensus science, don't you understand? And I'd be like, okay, Raul, so give me facts on what's driving the extreme forces to make a climate change. Are we talking about the Minsky effect, the Minsky cycle, which nobody's been able to disprove? And quite frankly, since 1913, that mathematical equation has been used to justify why natural climate change has happened and why we've had natural cycles of ice ages without industrial effects. I'll leave it at that, Andrew.
Well, I mean, it's interesting things you bring up there. And again, the way that we use things, the way that we have things. I know that, again, through the conversations that are being had here in a lot of ways, people, again, I think that the major issue people come down with is okay, if it's to be accepted, or saying that, all right, essentially it's a blame game, saying, okay, are we to blame or not? And therefore, are there punitive measures that are involved with it? And that's, again, why I keep gravitating towards talking about what do we do about it? Because, okay, if you're going to be getting bogged down with, all right, well, who's at fault? Who's to blame? Who do we need to take to task for this kind of a thing? As opposed to, okay, things are changing because they always do. And the question of if they're happening rapidly or not. I mean, let's just put it this way. There are certain cities that have been long associated, not even just in the United States, but in other places, with having bad air quality, right? Not as a natural consequence of their, they're just in a bad place. But I mean, we're talking like New York, LA, Mexico City, a lot of cities in the industrial parts of China. And no one is taking that as it just happens, right? Smog is just, it just happens. But I mean, there can be tricks of geography, like Mexico City being in a volcanic bowl. Pretty much anything produced there stays there. So that's what I take as the kind of microcosm example of we can absolutely have an impact on very much our local environment, but also given the scale of industrial production that has existed over hundreds of years, I think that there could be no noticeable, if imperceptible in the moment, impact happening on this world. It kind of doesn't make sense. But I think that the major reason that there is this, the reason people bring up in the debate on this is about, okay, so what do we do about it? And that's, again, why I'm more focused on that part of it, is because if it comes down to we have to essentially punish those that have been doing wrong or being bad about it. I think that's where the real consternation ends up coming from, among other things. I mean, this is a complicated conversation, and I'm not strictly opposed to the idea of seeing more sustainable, renewable things if it makes a good idea, if it's something that can be used viably and people are going to be willing to adopt it. If it's a forced kind of situation, that's where I'm thinking that even beyond any of these kind of global considerations of the status of the climate, it becomes a social issue. Then at that point are you going to be willing to get people to you, or are we having to use more carrot and stick mentality? And once you start using the stick, it becomes, we've already used it this way, we can keep using it this way, right? It ends up becoming we got to keep using it, or even amping it up here. So, I mean, there's good technology out there, stuff that we as a society decide we want to move towards, we certainly can. But if it's being done as you have to, and we're saying that you have to, that's where I see some of the biggest sticking issues coming up from here. So I do appreciate the point in the call, and different perspectives on this here. And of course, we've had local impact from this directly. So do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
No problem, Andrew. And that was a brilliant point about the stick and the carrot. Hopefully, I just want people to understand it's not a dead-end issue. The science isn't settled, and take the time to go research it, because you know what? Knowledge is power. And if people shame you into going and researching because you're too stupid or whatever they want to tell you, you just laugh in their face. Go find out, because the more people know, that's genuine power, knowledge, information. Because at this point, money doesn't mean anything.
Fair enough. Well, again, appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
You too, brother.
All right, and with that, we got to take that next break right now. We got a lot more commentary, comments, and other things, and of course, taking those phone calls in line, and a line available right now. Here's a hint: 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Still some slowing on the I-10 eastbound, but it's less than a 5-minute delay from Chelsea to Viscount. That's after an earlier crash been cleared. I-10 eastbound at the Hunter Viscount exit. A stalled Toyota SUV is blocking the left turn lane on Gateway West at Geronimo. An accident reported eastbound Sunland Park at Mesa, and a crash reported northbound Zaragoza, Montana Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has great prices on everything you need for back to school. Now save up to 60% on select notebooks, markers, and more. At Staples, school savings are always in session. Offer ends July 29th. Prices may vary in-store and online. School on, save on at Staples.
Are you a business owner, CEO, or responsible for marketing? If you are, iHeartMedia can help you reach your goals and find new customers. We reach more consumers in your target area than anyone else, and we can give you access to those potential customers more cost-effectively across radio, digital, podcasting, and social. We'd love to show you how iHeartMedia can work for you. Get started today at iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
Signs everywhere, signs for your business and signs for your ride. Sign Bros is the place where we make your signs.
Sign Bros is your source for vehicle wraps, window graphics, LED outdoor signs, and much more. 20 years in business locally. Call 855-8000, visit 1387 George Dieter, Suite C104, or go to signbrosep.com, where you don't pay for a sign pays for itself. Sign Bros.
There's a right way and a wrong way to fight off mosquitoes. Karate chopping the air, in a public place, in front of your kids, and their friends, Mom, is the wrong way. Using Stem mosquito repellent is the right way. Stem effectively repels mosquitoes by harnessing active ingredients found in plants, like lemongrass and peppermint, making it safe for use as directed around people and pets. Stem, rooted in nature, optimized by science, and embarrassment-free.
School on! Save on!
Back to school is on, and Staples has great prices on everything you need for your best year yet. Save on notebooks. Save on headphones and laptops. Save on pens, markers, and all the essentials. And right now at Staples, save up to 60% on select notebooks, markers, and more. School on, save on at Staples, where school savings are always in session. N729. Prices may vary in-store and online.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And a lot of commentary, different things being brought up there, discussed, debated, and sometimes interesting conversations, like a confluences of the topics, like a Ronaldo Rivera saying El Paso damages the atmosphere with Chico's Tacos. No comment on that one. And so I'm never truly in control or understanding where the comments are. But again, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, but there's others. Again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv. Anyway, get back to those phone lines. Again, that number to call if you want to get on the line, pull up at the moment, but it is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. I wanted to be a scientist when I went to college. I studied to be a chemical engineer, but frankly, I couldn't cut the mustard with the kind of lifestyle that I had at the time. But I did get my first job out of college was with a science company, Texas Instruments in Dallas, Texas, where I was supervising the manufacture of heart pacers and pocket pagers and auto electronics, and worked with all kinds of engineers and scientists. So The climate change denier said that there isn't any such thing as consensus among scientists on anything because science is always evolving. Now, there are things called laws in science, okay?
Sure.
And the consensus of the scientists is that the world is a sphere and rotates around the sun. And all kinds of scientific facts and laws made it possible to take man to the moon and back, which, by the way, Texas Instruments played a role in that,
sure.
and our modern world possible. Now, the speed of light is a constant, okay? Now, NASA,
Depending on the
the
medium,
Pentagon, the National Academy of Science say that we're experiencing the results of anthropogenic global climate change. And I'll take their word over that of the science denier. Now, on another subject, Republican presidential candidates and Republican members of Congress have proposed a border plan to send our military to Mexico to combat cartels.
Sure.
Now, that's another stupid idea from the wacky, radical maggot Republicans like T. Rump for president again. And now critics say that any action without Mexico's cooperation could be considered an act of war.
Certainly.
Now, this is just another distraction and diversion from reality. Here's the reality. Drug users will always be able to get all the drugs they want domestically. And that's one reason that sensible states have legalized the recreational and medicinal use of marijuana. Now most abuse drugs are legally prescribed drugs like Oxycontin and oxycodone. Now what happened to the Republican Nancy Reagan's advice of just say no? Now, tobacco causes death and health problems. Well, where's the right's crusade against the tobacco plutocrats? Suppose Mexico decided to ban cigarettes with American tobacco in them. So that is crazy stuff, okay? Now, El Paso continues to make the national news for our consecutive hot as hell days of 100 plus degrees. July saw the hottest week ever in human history with things are getting and will get progressively worse. We're heading for people being stricken by heat stroke. Yesterday, you seemed to imply that I hadn't proposed any solutions when in fact I had, Andrew. I said that what we need to do is tax the culprits, the principal
Oh, no, you definitely said that.
the energy plutocrats, and invest that money in creating renewable and clean energy producing machines, the proverbial perpetual motion machine, like fusion energy, solar energy, solar
proverbial,
panels,
I guess.
tidal energy, geothermal energy, heat pumps, turning manure and urine and garbage into clean energy, and making everything more efficient, clean, and reusable.
You've often said, don't have me characterize what you say. And yeah, no, you definitely said those things yesterday, but about the punitive nature about it, when I'm coming into saying, oh, you need to tax these guys because not even necessarily that it'll be useful towards it, but they've done bad, right? Like that's some of the reason, maybe not exactly your own, that is coming into this, and where I think the real sticking points get. I mean, sure, if someone is out here saying that the Earth is not a sphere, of which, yes, I'm aware they exist and may or may not be listening to this show, they're demonstrably wrong, but it comes to a kind of a, Luddite thing of if I can't see it, therefore it isn't real. Don't talk to them about germ theory in that case. But point is that I think that the real sticking point and one of the conventions that we have of the modern world is, it's not even just that I disagree with you about the way you're going about it, but I have to further disagree with you on the idea of the underlying facts, because then we're not even getting to the idea of the solutions here, which is just it leads to the bad debates we have on this program, even sometimes of we can't even agree on the basic ideas in play here. And that just, it's infuriating in its own right. It's along the same kind of logic of, insert political opposition here destroyed by this argument. Really? They were physically destroyed, they no longer exist? No, that's not how that works. It's not any of it how it works, but it feels good to say I creamed him, or I've owned the insert political party I disagree with here kind of mentality. It's useless in the long run, but it feels great. It's like chewing bubble gum. It feels like you're doing something, but you're really not getting anywhere. So this is so much to say that talking about the actual proposals about what to do with it here. And I mean, I know some people are saying about, well, it's nothing that we have control over, so what do we do about it? But that's, I guess I take that as okay, say that you are, because also let's say humanity isn't blameless in the way they've developed. It's not about, oh man, this place was perfectly fine, and now all of a sudden we have this massive flooding, forest fires are happening, all this kind of stuff. Like, there have been a lot of decisions that have been made along the route, maybe not entirely consciously by the people that are now reaping the consequences of it, but let's just say if you built something by a river and you're like, oh man, it's flooding. This is just natural. What can I do about it? That's the part that I'm primarily interested in it, because about, okay, how do we continue to develop? How do we make things work going forward? Because if things are changing, regardless of what you're going to point to as the cause of it, just saying this, well, they're changing, therefore we can't do anything, that just doesn't make sense. So that's why locally, what I end up putting forth and talking about is the idea that, okay, if we aren't going to like respond and react to this, like the very least, the incredibly minor idea I've floated is maybe we should stop using loose rock as landscaping decoration basically just about everywhere. And I'll freely admit, the house I've moved into, we haven't done any landscaping change, at least nothing real substantive. And yeah, we got loose rock of some small size, there's some larger ones in part of it, but like we haven't had a chance to get our hands on that yet. Kind of one of those didn't make the decision but reaping the consequences kind of situation. But if we don't think about that going forward, we're gonna reap what we have sown even further on here. So that's the part, particularly from the local aspect, because I mean, sure, it's interesting and it does affect us here, but this talk about, what's to be done globally? What can we do? What are the solutions? What to be done out there? That ends up being way out of our bounds and what any one person can conceive of. And that's kind of one of the problems with this whole discussion. It often feels like, oh man, there's nothing to be done. And it's this kind of hopelessness. And I reject that entirely, because there's always stuff that we can do, even from our standpoint, even from here locally. So thinking about the development, thinking about the way we deal with things, thinking about, okay, yeah, we are the Sun City, solar power as much as it can be implemented. And that's really a point of it. I think Buddy Vise said earlier that he appreciates having solar on his house and really the incentives that came along with it. Because really, if you're wanting to see changes, again, it's the whole pulling versus pushing a rope kind of thing. There's a whole lot of, let's push it, the whole tax it to make and change behavior coming along with it, which can have an impact, but there have been other ways that it's been implemented well outside of our area, like New York City. They were trying to essentially tax the use of certain beverages, sugary drinks, because of the impact that they saw on health rates, diabetes, etc. They were trying to pull it that way, and then a lot of people were, accusing of nanny state and those kind of things. And it ends up being the same kind of debate whenever it comes to climate issues, because if you're saying that, well, we're not going to be allowed to do this anymore, a lot of people are going to say, what the hell are you talking about? What do you mean you're not going to allow me to do something? As opposed to, hey, if you make a change or do something, or if you're considering this will make it easier for you, hey, maybe then make it easier to do that with, like, say, incentives or other tax programs. That would be like the better way. In general, specific proposals will always be evaluated on their own merits, but in general, if you're wanting to see things and be done and different, that might be the better way to go with it. Just saying there. We got to take that next break right now, so appreciate the point in the call and the local aspects of it. Anyway, that number to call again, if you all want to get on the line, is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. Police in Las Cruces continue to investigate a crash that sparked an enormous fire on the I-25, I-10 interchange last night. The semi-truck carrying fuel overturned on that off-ramp at about 7 o'clock last night. The fire sent a huge plume of smoke and flames shooting into the air and snarled traffic for hours. Authorities have still not located the driver of the big rig, and the investigation continues. Police officials have identified the man who died in a crash in El Paso's Lower Valley. That crash happened Monday night. Officials identified the man who died as 30-year-old Jose Guadalupe Rodriguez. According to preliminary investigations, a citizen walking along a canal noticed an overturned pickup truck on Tuesday morning near Socorro. Officials said that Rodriguez was driving at a high rate of speed on Monday night when he lost control and the vehicle veered off the dirt road into the embankment. As this occurred, Rodriguez was ejected from the vehicle. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound has had a share of crashes this afternoon. They're all cleared up, but I-10 eastbound slow from Trans Mountain to the Patriot with 7-minute delays. Eastbound on the Spur Liberty Expressway from the Gateway to the Loop, it's a 6-minute delay. Heads up for an accident reported northbound Dyer at Wren, and another crash reported northbound Zaragoza at Montana. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Weather warning continues for heat. We have the heat advisory going all the way through Saturday. Continued hot for tomorrow. High around 105 degrees, a 20% chance of thunderstorms. As we look ahead to your Friday, partly cloudy skies, high around 107, 30% chance of thunderstorms. Looks like storm chances will be going down for the weekend while temperatures stay hot. Partly cloudy Saturday, high around 107, 10% chance of a storm. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If summer is heating up your hiring needs, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Sponsor your first job and get hiring today by visiting Indeed.com/credit.
Protection for all, peace of mind for you. For over 40 years, Mazer Security Alarms has proudly served El Paso with superior service and superior protection. You can afford the best. For your free quote or to upgrade your existing system, call Mazer Security Alarms at 915-590-0033.
Why do you change your car's air filter? Because when it's clogged, it doesn't work. The same is true of your nose, the body's air filter. It's great at trapping allergens, dust, and viruses, but unless you clean it regularly, they can stay trapped, making you miserable. I'm Martin Hogue, inventor of Navage, the world's only nose cleaner with powered suction. Navage pulls saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, helping to flush out allergens, mucus, and germs. Here's a testimonial from a verified purchaser and a big Navage fan. Quote, I've been suffering for 30 years with chronic sinus infections and allergies. I stumbled across Navage. The suction is amazing. It cleared my sinus cavities better than anything I've tried before. Unquote. Navage has over 120,000 reviews with a 4.6-star average written by people who use Navage to breathe better, snore less, and feel healthier. Wash your body's air filter with Navage at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life. Every day, you breathe in thousands of tiny little germs, allergens, and viruses. Don't let these invisible invaders make breathing through your nose impossible. Flush them out with Navage. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage to make cleaning your nose easy. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, helping flush out everything that makes you miserable. Nearly 4 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and feel healthier. People like Doug, a verified Navage user who writes, I had difficulty for years breathing through my nose. After using Navage, my whole breathing has changed. My sinuses don't hurt and no more stuffy nose. It's an amazing product. Unquote. If you suffer from sinus congestion, allergies, or snoring, then Navage is the safe, drug-free solution you've been looking for. Navage is at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, and Navage.com. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right. Get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/radio. That's 4hims.com/radio for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/RADIO.
Attention business owners. Was your company impacted during COVID? If you had W-2 employees during 2020 and 2021, you may be entitled for up to $26,000 per employee through the Employee Retention Credit Program. This is not alone. The IRS paid back billions already. We've helped thousands of businesses just like yours. So let us help you. At ERC Business Solutions, we make it simple. We do it all for you, so you won't have to worry about the complex application process. There's absolutely no risk. If you don't get paid, we don't get paid. Most businesses do qualify, even those with no decline in revenues or those that already got PPP. Discover how much you can claim. There's no cost or obligation. Call now, 800-200-2250. That's 800-200-2250. Get up to $26,000 per employee. Call 800-200-2250. 800-200-2250.
If your business is feeling a summer hiring wave, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply. This report is sponsored by Indeed.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. So a lot of ways to comment, get your 2 cents in, add in other ideas and things here. But again, if you want to reach out to the show, of course, that phone line open now if you're getting towards the end of the program. But if you want to squeeze on, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. So make sure you get that 915 in there, because that's required these days. Made the mistake myself the other day of just dialing the non-area code number, and remember, that doesn't work anymore. In any case, got a lot more commentary coming on there, including debates between usableness, usefulness of different kind of solar and issues with it. Like John Adams, I'm also saying just in the landscaping that rocks and artificial turf in your yard do increase the ambient temperature in that immediate area. No doubt about that. It's not, however, changing the climate overall. I mean, sure. And like, yeah, we have not grass in our front yard, but we also have a bunch of trees. We're not quite on a tree-lined street, but as close as you get to here in El Paso, which of course has water usage implications, but we appreciate the overall impact of it when it is. But in general, another point being brought up here, it should be a choice and not forced on the public. That's the point where, like, okay, people are also saying that, in response to this, you need to, go vegan. You need to walk everywhere. And like, there are some people, I don't mind people doing that. Someone saying, yeah, that's the choice that I'll make for myself here is, well, that's a choice you can make. But again, it's that aspect of, and now you have to, that I think is the real sticking point in a lot of this. But let's squeeze on the calls we can before the end of the show here. We do have Jerry in the Northwest on the line with us here right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
That's the thing. What's on your mind?
Interesting discussing we're having about the weather. And
sure.
I mentioned this like last month. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmosphere Administration,
right?
Last month said there's going to be an El Nino, and they reported that it's going to cause the weather to get hotter because it changes the jet stream, the Pacific jet stream, to a different location. Instead of going across the U.S., it either goes south or north of the U.S. So it makes the U.S. get hotter. And this is backed up by the BBC.
Sure.
BBC is not a right-wing conspiracy outlet, okay, that these other people want to claim. Okay, that's number one. Number two is they claim that the gases that cause global warming, as they're calling it now, it used to be called climate change. And in the 1970s, when I was going to school, they were worried about it being coming to an ice age, the world coming to an ice age. And they were putting stuff out in magazines for young children, particularly people that were in junior high and high school. That was disproven. So they're not sure exactly what's going on with the weather, but whenever you try to control it, you're going to mess it up. Okay, that's number two.
Fair enough.
Number three, the three gases they're claiming that cause global warming are nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide, and methane.
Right.
Okay.
Among others, sure.
Well, those are the three major ones. carbon dioxide we humans breathe out. There's an
Sure.
individual that's out there that's worth billions of dollars. He created a computer company, and Microsoft, I believe, is a computer company that he created. And he wants zero emissions of carbon. That means that every living human and every animal that breathes would have to stop breathing. So that's number 3. So some of the stuff is not, just right-wing conspiracy stuff. When you get somebody that has billions of dollars, a guy named Gates, right? He has billions of dollars, and he's pushing a lot of this stuff. And he wants zero emissions of carbon. That would have to include us breathing, stop breathing. So that's number 3. Number 4, there are answers to this if they believe it's true. One of those is hydrogen. We can make vehicles run off of hydrogen, and what would come out of the tailpipe would be water. Okay, and I've used hydrogen before, and I'm willing to put up, if Raul and these others are wanting to do something about it, help fund me to do this stuff with hydrogen. Okay, now it's not going to be an immediate effect, but I can reduce, or increase. I can increase the mileage of a vehicle anywhere from 10 to 35%, which would reduce the amount of emissions coming out of the exhaust 10 to 35%. Now, that's not the complete answer, but that's a start.
Sure.
So if they're serious about it, help fund me. Put your money where your mouth is, guys. Quit being just crybabies and put your money where your mouth is.
I mean,
Thank you, Andrew. And I'll listen on my headset.
All right. Well, appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Yes, sir.
I'll say this, that I think that you're talking about wanting to be, I think the better phrase is carbon neutral, because zero carbon, saying that there's no carbon being emitted. Yeah, anyone who's out there seriously saying well, it's along the lines of the logic of there'll be peace on earth when the last person is extinguished, right? Like, sure, you have accomplished the goal, and yet I'm not going to take that seriously as it. I think most of the way that it's getting talked about is, again, carbon neutral, or there is not being anything being done more than the net contribution, that is, of which there have been suggestions over the years of there being, again, like I mentioned, just a crap load of trees being planted is one of the situations. But not just like hey, everyone go out and plant a tree, but like concentrated planting of it. Study actually from MIT. This one dated 2022, saying that it would take, for at least for the American emissions, their estimate on it there, about 640 trees per person, which adds up to more than 200 billion trees, given that there are about 3 trillion trees on Earth. Because, but they said that the short answer is no, that they wouldn't actually work, because the planet's carbon cycle is messy, and like we've seen particular events that have affected the ability and weather and climate in different areas over the years. So carbon monoxide, a buddy of mine was asking, I thought the problem was carbon monoxide, not dioxide. Carbon monoxide is the poisonous one. That's the one that if you breathe it in can kill you. And as opposed to carbon dioxide, the stuff that we exhale, I believe, don't totally quote me on this, but my understanding of it is that carbon monoxide comes from like the burning of things. So like your furnace, there's a reason they have you check those monitors whenever going into the cold seasons, among other things. And we might need to, have a gas heaters or whatever people end up having. But carbon dioxide is what we exhale, which, if you're trapped in a room and there's no air circulation, it can do a lot of it as well. But the carbon monoxide is like the poisonous, dangerous, immediate threat one kind of situation. So, carbon in general is the part of the conversation here. So, there are possibilities of ways to go about this. And I would encourage, certainly in this realm, debate about, okay, so how do we go about this? If we're going to say that, okay, things are shifting, again, I am kind of purposely ignoring the whole blame and finger pointing that comes along with the initial part of this conversation because I don't feel that's productive. But okay, if we're going to say that things are not the way that they were, I mean, time does go forward. We do see natural cycles like, El Nino, La Nina, solar maximums, even the tilting of the poles that changes over and therefore changes a little bit of, how the seasons work over millennia. But all of those also are factors that are in the same time, because I feel like people are either mentioning one or the other, saying that man-made or natural systems, and not saying that we're kind of seeing impacts of both of them now, aren't we? I mean, there was the hole in the ozone layer, among other things, that was pretty well undeniable. At least I've not seen anyone actually deny it to my face, about coming from human activity. So again, the idea that we can't have an impact on the world around us is just kind of laughable at its face. So that's why I go straight to okay, so what are we going to do about changing circumstances? Because if we're not focusing on that part, and it just ends up being the Spider-Man meme pointing at each other, no, you're to blame, no, you are. It ends up being circular and a circle. Well, I can't finish that phrase. So anyway, we got to take that next break right now, getting close to the end of this show here. So we weren't able to get up to all the calls in line, for which I apologize. But of course, we're getting closer to Free for All Friday, of which we will certainly have our own bit to talk about, I am sure here. But so got to take that next break right now. Coming out, tell you what we got coming up for you on the program. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound a little slower than usual this afternoon with 12-minute delays from Trans Mountain over to the 54 Patriot. On the spur, eastbound Liberty Expressway gateway to the loop, it's a 5-minute delay. A disabled vehicles on the left shoulder on the 54 Patriot southbound at Trans Mountain. And an accident reported in the Upper Valley Dyer northbound at Wren. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If summer is heating up your hiring needs, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Sponsor your first job and get hiring today by visiting Indeed.com/credit.
The teacher had said she was daydreaming. Stacy, he is extra sensitive and there is no in-between for him.
Are you wondering why your child is struggling? It might be a sign of a learning or thinking difference like ADHD or dyslexia. Some kids are wired differently, but all kids can thrive with the right support. Talk with your pediatrician to find answers and explore solutions. The American Academy of Pediatrics and Understood.org are here to help. Visit understood.org/iHeart for tools and resources.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Did you know that only 2 in 10 El Paso County students graduate with a bachelor's degree? By supporting Border Youth Athletic Association's mission of educational attainment, you will create a long-lasting impact in our students' lives. Your monthly donation enables 4th through 12th grade students access to after-school programs, providing a safe and healthy environment. BYAA engages and empowers El Paso's future through mentorship and leadership development. We believe every player who gets an education wins. Do you? Go to borderyouth.org and show your support for our youth today.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Yeah, a lot of conversations going on today. This never quite go the way I expect him to, but some of the stuff we got coming up for you, of course, on the program, I mean, more discussion and more talk about the local things, including a tidbit that we'll have for you tomorrow on some local performances. Yeah, we got actually quite a busy schedule of performances and other things, but some on the smaller side, some on the more local side. We'll have a tidbit on that, of course, more discussion about the big news that we only really kind of scratched the surface with, I feel like, today, but that's what happens when you do a live call with live call-ins now, live show with live call-ins now, doesn't it? So it's a whole lot more Texas stuff also going on that we'll get into, including the progression of the legislative session and what may or may not be coming next. And also, there's been stuff going on with the Texas Attorney General seat, the new interim appointed. So there's a few things that we need to catch up on there as well. So we'll talk more about that, but we'll have to leave it there for today. Super out of time here for this show. So I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. We'll do it again tomorrow as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So until then, until next time, I want you all to stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
The spur is looking a little bit better eastbound Liberty Expressway from the gateway to the loop. It's a 5-minute delay. Still slow on the I-10 eastbound. Trans Mountain over to the Patriot is a 5-minute backup. An accident reported northbound Dyer at Wren Avenue. And police are responding to a crash Montwood Drive eastbound at Jack Nicklaus. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Keep your family and livelihood safe with a stable security system from Mazer Security Alarms. Your trusted El Paso security expert since 1982. You can get the best. Systems start at under $35 per month with upfront purchase to lease options and $0 down payment packages available. Get the peace of mind you deserve with Mazer Security Alarms. For your free quote or to upgrade your existing system, call Mazer Security Alarms at 915-590-0033. Mazer Security Alarms.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Being aware of the world around you is important.
When it comes to news, yes, I am.
So we're feeding your need to know 24/7 at the top and bottom of the hour.
I like to know what's going on in my locality, abroad.
Events of the world.
Fairly so. Yeah, I'm pretty connected.
Or down the street.
For the most part, I know what's going on.
You know, I need to be aware and what to look out for, and I'm real cautious, so yeah, I need to have that.
It's what news on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Meteorologists say a heat dome is expanding from much of Texas into parts of California. Las Vegas and Phoenix have hit triple digits today. Meanwhile, heavy rains have left parts of the Northeast with collapsed bridges, washed out roads, and swift moving water that stranded people in their homes and cars. Reports say hackers based in China breached U.S. government email accounts. CNN reports hackers breached 2 executive branch agencies, including the State Department. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller didn't comment on who may have carried out the hack.
The incident remains under investigation, and we continuously monitor our networks and update our security procedures.
Hackers also reportedly targeted an agency on Capitol Hill, but it's not clear if they were successful. The University of Idaho will delay plans to demolish the house where 4 students were killed last year. Family members of the victims want the house to remain intact in the event it's needed for the prosecution of the suspect, Brian Koberger. Community members want it destroyed because it's a reminder of what happened. Twitter is being hit with a lawsuit from ex-employees who claim they didn't receive severance pay. Lisa Taylor has the details.
Those suing the social media giant are part of terminations that happened after Elon Musk bought the company last year. The former workers want $500 million in damages, as well as an order for Twitter to abide by all terms of a promised severance plan by paying all terminated employees what they're owed. Twitter let go about 80% of its workforce following Musk's takeover. Twitter is also facing a number of other lawsuits over severance pay, bonuses, and layoffs that allegedly targeted women and workers with disabilities. I'm Lisa Taylor.
Someone could have a lot more money in their bank account with tonight's Powerball drawing. The jackpot has reached $750 million. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio.
Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Donovan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the one and only margarita from the cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Donovan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152.
Is foot pain keeping you from living life to its fullest? Would you like to come home from work ready to go instead of ready to rest your feet? Life's too short to be dealing with foot, knee, or back pain. Come into the Good Feet store and learn how the Good Feet Arch Support System can help you get pain-free.
You don't plan for a computer virus. You don't plan to lose files. You don't plan to knock your laptop off the counter. And you don't plan for your PC to crash or your screen to freeze. But Staples has a plan. A plan for unlimited virus protection. A plan for help when you need it 24/7. Staples Total Support Plans are your tech plans for the unplanned, starting as low as $199.99. And although you didn't plan for this, right now at Staples you can also get $250 off select computers. N729 in-store only. See Associate for details.
You could throw your flip-flop at a bug. Ew, a bug, get it. But the chances of actually hitting it, over there, are statistically, it's still alive. Unlikely. Good thing nature's got your back. Stem bug killers combine powerful active ingredients found in plants, like lemongrass and geraniol, and scientifically engineer them into effective bug-fighting formulas, safe for use as directed around people, pets, and throughout the home. Stem, rooted in nature, optimized by science.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
The Rod Ryan Show. It's the Woody Show.
It's Elliot in the morning. All of the once-in-a-lifetime events.
iHeartRadio Music Festival, yeah!
All of the best free curated playlists.
The best bands.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
The stuff they don't want you to know.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome. All of your favorite superstars.
This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
The thought of my sons growing up without me inspired me to quit smoking.
I talked to my doctors, and then I threw away all my cigarettes, ashtrays, and lighters.
I started exercising instead of smoking.
Getting support from friends online kept me on track.
Staying away from alcohol when I was first quitting was key.
Instead of smoking after I ate, I'd get up and take a walk.
I missed having a cigarette in my hand, so I'd hold a pen or a straw, anything.
Until I knew I wouldn't give in to temptation, I spent more time with my friends who didn't smoke.
I went to places that were smoke-free.
I didn't stay quit the very first time I tried.
I kept on trying, and I learned something each time.
Do whatever it takes.
No matter how many times it takes.
I quit.
I quit.
I quit.
We did it, so can you.
You can quit. For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690 KTSM, an iHeart radio station, El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.